Welcome back to Portugal Junkies podcast.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Meredith. And we are fueled with coffee this morning.
Yeah, you can possibly tell that. And you're certainly going to get you're going to get to hear that.
So, I'm not joking though, because we absolutely have our coffees ready. And I actually, if you're watching this on YouTube, I have my notes pulled up too, because we are serious. We are serious today about the content of this episode, because today we're going to talk about our D7 visa process.
Yep.
This is probably what I would assume to be one of the biggest questions that anybody who's even thinking about moving here has. Basically, like, how do I get there? How do I legally get the status that I need in order to get there? And so, unless you are coming here for 90 days or less on a tourist visa, you are going to need some sort of visa. Mm-hmm. But today we're only going to be talking about the D7.
Yep.
And we're only going to be talking about it as if you are an applicant from the United States. And that is only because that is our experience so far, right? I don't want to be promising you that it's the same for Canada or it's the same from the UK. We are going to speak about our experience on the D7 visa because we just went through it.
We're going to speak about what we know about.
Yes.
And that's personal to us.
Yes. Now, I will give another disclaimer. There is another visa that is very popular that just rolled out in the past year. When was that?
I think it was toward the end of last.
Yeah, toward the end of last year. And it is a digital nomad visa. That is the D8 visa. We may come back on and highlight that for you at some point, but we wanted to start here with the D7 because I think it's the most popular. I'll say that. Mainly because the D8 is new, but a lot of people jumped on that because you've got a lot of young people who are working and their companies say, hey,
go work anywhere.
Go work anywhere. That is a digital nomad D8 visa. A D7 visa is what people would call like a retirement visa, or some people will call it passive income visa. So that's the lay of the land. That's the disclaimers that we want to put up front on the beginning of the episode, just to make sure that we're not confusing anyone.
Confusing anybody, yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
So D7 from the United States.
For a US citizen.
Yes. Perfect.
Okay.
So now the first thing we need to talk about that I feel like we did not get. We did not get this information. We gathered it ourselves along the way. And that was, who are the players? And how do they work together in order to make this visa process happen?
Where do they fit in the process?
Yeah, and how do you interact with them as an applicant? So the first one is called VFS Global. And how would you describe these people?
They are...
I mean, not personally.
Okay, I'll rewind that bit. No,
what do they do?
Depending on where you live in the States, you're going to have a VFS office that is looking after 4, 5, 6 different states. So for us, living in North Carolina, our office location was Washington, D.C. VFS are the paperwork gatherers. They are the sifters to make sure that everything is in order. They're not assessing you as to whether you have a application that is going to pass or not. They are just the form checkers that say, yes, we've asked you for 11 things, you've given me 11 things,
right?
It's going to move on.
And
that's it.
And they gather it from you, they get it together, and then they send it off to the consulate / immigration, who then makes the decision. So the 3 players are VFS, the consulate, and you're going to hear people, and you might have already seen some of this if you've researched anything regarding moving to Portugal so far, which is CEF and IMA, AIMA. So those are the 3 players, and CEF and IMA basically are each other, for lack of a better way of explaining it. CEF used to administer the process of deciding who is given a visa. But what has happened is that CEF as an organization has transferred over to AMA. AMA is now handling that process. So all of that happened, luckily, and I'm so sarcastic, during our visa process.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about our timeline in just a minute.
Yeah.
But that transition happened after we had applied. And so we actually applied under SEF and were approved under AMA. And so you can imagine with bureaucracy how
left hand
crazy
sometimes doesn't talk to right hand.
it got a little.
It happens.
A little crazy. So those are the three players, and I mean I know that seems so elementary and so 101 visa 101, but nobody ever really told us that and how they were related to each other. There were times throughout the process where I felt like I was emailing AMA or SEF, but I was really emailing the consulate.
Yeah.
Or I didn't understand that VFS wasn't a decision-making body. And so we just wanted to lay that out because I think it's important to understand the purpose of each step and what each group is actually looking for from you. Mm-hmm. Because if we had the bigger picture, we might have made some different decisions. So I just wanted to chat through that. So also, we need to talk about the current challenges of what I referred to earlier. That transition from SEF to AMA has really put some snags in the flow of the process. So if you, again, have done any research, you've probably seen that you've got a lot of people who are kind of in flux who have applied because they've applied and the organizations that were handling things changed. And so processes changed in the middle and workflows changed and maybe even availability of workforce, all of that stuff could be playing a factor right now. So
it will be playing.
Yeah, visas for a time were taking longer than they normally were taking. And so we'll get into that. But there's three things going on with this current situation. So that one is the SEF to AMA transition is still ongoing and it is still wreaking some havoc for people who have applied or something like that, or future availability of appointments, that kind of thing, but we'll get into that. The second thing is you had an influx of applicants from the U.S. specifically, but applicants from everywhere who want to come to Portugal, because I would say within the past 5-7 years, it's really made its way onto the map as a great destination
to retire to.
100%.
Yep.
And the reasons for that are the reasons why we came. Mm-hmm. So affordability and safety and climate and wine. But it's not a secret much anymore, right? And so it's gained in popularity.
Yeah.
And people are interested, which is why we're trying to be a resource for people who are wanting to come over here too. So you've got the changeover, you've got an influx of applicants, and then also in the fall of last year, the president of Portugal stepped down amid a controversy. And so everything that was immigration related under his government and the current laws and rules were kind of in flux as well. Mm-hmm. So there was a time period there where it's like, well, this is going to be extended for 30 days and everything's going to stay the same. And then there was more stuff that came out.
It really depended who you listened to and at what point in the day you listened to it, because it would change.
Yeah, because if a different kind of party leader was elected, we didn't know what those rules would be or what would change.
Yeah.
So it is, those three things are what are causing, I would say, the hurdles right now for people. And I would say we experienced some of that. We experienced some of those challenges, but we've also been very lucky in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure.
And we'll talk about it because we're going to talk about our timeline so that you get a better idea of how it worked for us.
how it can apply to you.
And how,
In
you
theory,
can apply
at
it to what you're trying to accomplish and when.
Yeah.
So, Is there anything that you would add on the whole current situation?
Just within a lot of the Facebook forums, there's a lot of people that are having challenges in getting appointments, even just in VFS.
Yeah, they're having...
There's no appointment availability. You can't go to another VFS office if you live in one particular state. You have got to go to that approved place. So there's no getting around that. You just got to check it every hour of every day.
Yeah, and I think, for us, and we're going to talk about it because Mark's getting ready to start us taking us through our timeline. But, for us, we decided we wanted to make an appointment in June, and we purposefully chose a September appointment because we wanted to move in October or November or whatever. And at the time,
everybody was like, 30 days.
People were getting their visas within 30 days. And so we were like, okay, well, if we want to be there in the fall, then let's back up, right? And so that wasn't an issue for us then, but it could be an issue now if you are sitting here thinking about doing this process. So high level, that's one of the, impacts of all those things that we just talked about in that whole current situation. And,
so just to
let's
easily,
talk about our timeline.
To easily lay out the timeline. So we've mentioned a couple of dates, but in order, the goal was to be there in October, November. As we said, the approvals were taking about 30 days, so we made our VFS appointment for 25th of September. It came out, and we thought, perfect, that's great.
So before we go forward, what happens at the VFS appointment, high level? Because we talked about who VFS is.
Yeah, that was.
But high level, what is it? What do you do when you go to the VFS appointment?
When you get there, whatever time your appointment is, you've got to be there 15 or 30 minutes before, but they only let you in staggered because they don't want the whole building overrun with lots of different people. One thing I would say as a pro tip, if you like, is when you're applying as a family or as two people like you and I were, you're both applying on your own but together, and often it's a case that you're only allowed to have one person go up and talk all the documents through for both people with that one.
True. Because I was that person.
Representative of VFS. So
put your best player forward.
Take your MVP and throw them in.
Basically, the person who knows your paperwork best is the person who needs to be.
The person that wants to go up there and see it. But in all, it's very. If you've got everything in the right order, in the right place, and you know your stuff, any questions that they may ask, it's a pretty easy process, maybe 30, 45 minutes at the most, depending on how many applicants. But yeah, it's pretty...
Yeah, basically you present yourself in person. They call it an interview, but it's not really an interview.
Yeah.
Again, I wish we had known this, because we didn't know.
Yeah, it's just a checklist, like a tick box.
I felt like we were going into a green card interview again. That was scary.
That gives me...
That was scary for no reason.
Yeah.
But again, you don't know what you don't know, so the anxiousness can take over. But basically, when you go to VFS, you are presenting yourself in person because they require that.
Yeah, you can't do walk-ins and you can't do mailing anymore. And you're there to give them the application and all the supporting documentation, and maybe even take some passport photos if you don't already have them. They have some biometric stuff there if needed, if you need backup for the things that you couldn't provide, or if the photo is a little bit off.
They made me retake my photo, blah blah blah. We're going to talk about all of those details, but later. I want to just take us back to your whole point of the VFS global appointment that starts this process is to present yourself in person and give them all the documentation that's required in order to apply for the visa.
Yeah.
And then VFS packages it together, and then they send it off, and you start waiting.
And then you start learning Portuguese patience.
PP. Portuguese patience.
If you ever see or hear us refer to PP, it's Portuguese patience.
We could do an entire episode.
Really can't underestimate the value that will give you.
If you ever learn it.
I don't even know if some Portuguese people can learn it. But
here's the thing.
Anyway.
Things move slower, and you can either look at that as this is what I'm moving toward and leaving the hustle bustle craze in the US, or you have to struggle with, and I think I'm kind of in the middle of that right now because I've learned a little bit, but my inclinations are always like, go, go, go. And
you got to unlearn that.
Patience, you'll hear us say that a lot.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, let's take us back.
Yep.
Timeline. We were going to try to be there in October, November,
Yep.
so we made the appointment for September 25th. So, we made our appointment online in June. And then from June till September.
Collected all the paperwork.
We did. Now, I mean, that's a big, huge caveat, right? Like, collected all the paperwork took quite a long time. And we are going to do...
It takes longer than you think.
It does. We are going to do some very detailed future episodes about each element so that we give some pro tips on those things. When you should collect, what you should do first, that kind of thing.
What order, etc. So we got to the point where we had the interview, came out of there feeling absolutely elated,
had some
and then
champagne, and then we waited.
Yeah,
and then we waited,
and again waited a little bit
and
more.
Waited some more.
We hadn't heard anything by October, so we were getting a little bit.
We really kept going
because it was a case of, well, everybody else is getting it in 30 days and we're not, and what's going on, and blah blah blah. So again,
because ours was September 25th, and we were like, well, if we haven't heard by Halloween,
we're going to make a trip over.
I know we'll hear by Halloween.
Yeah.
I know we will.
But we didn't. We decided to take a trip over, move some suitcases and get into our apartment. We should, again, part of the process, we'll come to it in a later episode, but you already have to have your apartment. You probably know this. If you don't, you're going to know. Move some stuff across and just enjoy it for a week or so. Because
it was really to get some suitcases over here.
Yeah. We did bring more than we thought we were going to. I think
that's a whole nother
I think we were a lot
too.
Naive about what we could travel with.
How did I bring 3 coats?
I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, so
I have no idea.
We go over in November just to take some things and settle in and see the apartment that we had rented, because we did do all of that remotely.
Yep.
Again, more to come on that. And then we returned back home and waited some more.
Still no news.
Here comes Thanksgiving. Still no news.
Yeah, and we just decided that we were gonna, since we already have the apartment, we can stay there for 90 days. As tourists, let's just crack on.
Let's go. So basically, again, these trips were elective, right? We know not everybody is going to be able to do that or want to do it. But those were things I had already quit my job, and Mark had wrapped up his real estate transaction. It's just like, what are we going to sit here for if we can go be in a place that we are paying for? So that was our logic there. And quite frankly, we had no idea when the visa was going to turn up at that point, because the changes had happened from SEF to AMA, and we were hearing rumblings about it being
delays
and so we just wanted to enjoy ourselves. So that's what we did. So we did move over here December 1st without visas. But if you do that, basically you have to know that you are going to have to go back to the United States when you get your visa approval.
You get your email approving, and you've got to send your passports in now. You can't send it from Portugal.
Right.
A number of different reasons. Number one, you can't be in a country without a passport if it's not your place of residence. And number two, you've got to show a entry stamp in your passport coming back in to start your 2-year temporary residence. So
basically, when we got our approval December 18th, we were sitting in our apartment in Porto, and we celebrated, yay, great! And then we enjoyed Christmas here. We came home in January.
A little Christmas tree.
We did. We bought a little Christmas tree, and we came back in January to the States. We mailed our passports in the mail because that's what they require you to do. It's the most nerve-wracking part of the process to put your 2 passports in a FedEx overnight envelope and then pray that it gets there. But that's what you do. That's the requirement. You cannot walk in. You cannot do any of that. Don't even try it unless they change something under AMA. But when it existed, the process existed that way for us. So we overnighted the passports. They received them. They put the visa in our passports and mailed them by FedEx back to us.
Yeah.
And that is how you actually get your visas. So that is all part 1, wouldn't you say? Like, that is step 1 of the visa process, because what you're getting in your passport is a temporary visa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would also add to that is when you get a visa, just make sure if there's a little URL stamped physically on the visa slip, check that, because that, if you're one of the lucky ones, that it's like Willy Wonka's getting the golden
the golden ticket.
Because it means that they've already set you up for your first AMA interview.
Now, that's part 2.
That's part 2.
So that leads me in.
But it's just because we were talking about a passport, I just want to say, look for this, because if it's in there, or if there's any mention of it, you're a lucky winner.
Yes.
So
we were lucky
winners. We were very lucky. And I think that kind of made up for some of
the waiting.
Crappy stuff that would go our way.
It's just like anything that you go through where you're in flux. Like the waiting process was the hardest part, and being patient was the hardest part, because your whole life is in flux.
What do you do?
You're worried that you're not going to get approved, or you're worried that it's too late and you're paying for an apartment for longer than you thought before you're in it. There's all these things that are like it can make you very anxious. Mm-hmm. And I remember people would just say, you just have to be patient. Yeah. You just have to be patient. And I can see it now, like I get it now. Looking back, it's easy to say that to people, but when you're in it, it can be very, feels very tumultuous, you know? But so all that we outlined until we got our visas in our passport was part 1 of the visa process. Yeah. Once you get here, and you have 120 days, I believe, to get here, right? Once your visa is effective, you have 120 days to enter the country. And although I don't know many people who wait that long, I think most people are like chomping at the bit to get here. Yeah. The second piece is your second interview, which is kind of perfunctory. I know that's
it's a posh word.
That's a posh word. It's like
who are you and what have you done with my
obligatory? Life? Is that another one? It's like formality. Yeah. But it's a second interview in person with now AMA. And at this interview, they want you to update a little bit of the paperwork. They might ask you for additional like bank statements that are more recent or something like that, right?
We'll get into that.
Biometrics, things like that, to issue your actual temporary residency card. And so we're going to talk about all that on a future episode, but it's important that you know that whole process that we went through is step 1, and then once you get here, there is a step 2 in order to actually get your temporary residency card, which is valid for 2 years. Yeah. And that's where we are. Mm-hmm. We've gotten all that done. We'll take you through all of that, how we actually did it and what's required and all those things. But that's how we sit here today in Porto, both with our cards in hand, which means we're kind of able to breathe a minute for the next couple of years, because that card is valid for 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. And
at which time we would choose to renew for 3.
Yep.
And then at
after
5 years,
you can apply citizenship.
You can apply for citizenship.
Well, that's under the current regime.
Yes. Again, all subject to if anything changes, but that's how it exists today.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to put a word to the process of getting to this point where we sit today, I would just use the word emotional.
It is.
Just that. And you have got to learn to take some punches, and you've got to learn to make sure you enjoy the wins, because it's a balance, and you can't have one without the other. I don't know of anybody, and I've not seen anybody write that they had a absolutely simple process.
Yeah.
This does not happen. You're dealing with bureaucracy in a different country, in a different language, all sorts of mix-ups can happen.
But I do believe that what we can share can help people avoid some of those things. Just because we have perspective now, and it's not just about what you need is XYZ on the checklist. Like there's more. It's more to it than that because, and again, we're going to talk about it, but I felt like some of the big picture we were missing in order to choose the right documents to prove what they really are looking for.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to talk about in the next episode.
Yeah.
The most important things that they're going to ask for, that immigration is looking for, and why they're looking for those things. Because I didn't understand the why.
If you can understand the why, I think it really, really helps determine, it's not just for an unknown reason. There is a reason
why they're asking you for this, and this. Yeah. And why someone might be denied because they didn't provide something that was clearer here. Mm-hmm. So this is, again, what this channel and what our community that we want to build is all about. We want to make sure that we are using our experience, giving bigger perspective, tips and tricks and all of that kind of stuff that's going to help the process be easier for you when you decide that this is what you want to embark on. In addition to things like Portugal travel and where to live and all kinds of other things that we're going to be including, but this seemed to be the biggest and most popular topic that people wanted more information about. So we are going to continue this series. The next episode is going to dive deeper into some of the requirements of the D7 visa. And we're going to get in specifics with you guys about what you need and why. That's the other thing. Why are they asking you for these things? Yep. So, high level, before we move forward, if you are already ready to start your immigration and visa process, the first tip I would tell you is go on the VFS Global site, determine what your office is based on where you live, and check the appointment schedules. Yep. So get an idea of when the next available appointment actually is, because it's going to depend on your timeline, and it's also going to depend on what the turnaround is. Right now, they have 90 days to respond to your application. It took them the full 90 days for us. Some people right now are getting there.
We were under the impression it was going to be like the 30, but it turned out 90.
So it's all about trends, it's all about workflows and that kind of thing. But, right now some people are getting them in 30 to 45 days. Yeah. I can't guarantee that when you watch this, it's going to be the same.
Might be better, might be lower.
It's exactly right. So I would say check the site. You are not going to set up an appointment with VFS more than 90 days prior to when you actually want to go. That's kind of a rule. A rule that I would suggest, I would say. It's not a rule from anybody like in the organizations, but it's a good starting point to kind of figure out your timeline, because if they take 90 days and you want to be there within that 90 days or 120 days, that's going to put you about where you need to be. Yep. So that's number one. It doesn't guarantee you that you're going to get your visa in that time frame, but all that we're telling you today is about setting yourself up for the best case scenario, right? And so that's where I would start, and at least kind of do your research on how often these appointments are available right now in this current climate that we outlined earlier. That's it. So basically it's how do you give yourself the best case opportunity to get it done as fast as Portuguese patients
will allow you. It's an emotional journey, but it's also one that you're not going to avoid. It's just what it is.
It's not for the faint of heart, and it's also, I I believe some
I think
of this
there is
stuff.
some truth to this, that the system is set so that if you're 100% committed, then
You'll push forward. You'll get over the hurdles, and you'll make it.
If you're not, then if you start seeing these roadblocks, then
And you
these.
go, oh my God.
I'm sorry to say it this way. This is just sort of like the very first part of a potential roadblock, because once you live here, there are several other roadblocks. Even getting Wi-Fi installed and things like that. It's just
Don't get me started.
mind blowing. So all of these things.
Yeah.
Take it in stride, breathe, and
know that if you push forward, it will figure itself out, and you will get your visa.
Yeah.
It's just you might hit some hurdles along the way. They might come back to you and tell you they need more information. They might come back to you with approval. They might come back to you with a denial. That doesn't mean that you don't get your visa.
You still got 14
You
days
have
to
other
appeal.
resources to figure it out. So again, our goal for the next podcast, maybe even 2 episodes, are going to be about these details that will help you set yourself up to presenting yourself for the visa approval in the best way possible.
Yep.
And that's our goal for the next couple of episodes. But
Absolutely.
if you do have questions that are specific, right, to your situation and your timeline that didn't get clear here today, or that you want more clarity on for your specific situation, we are available for one-on-one consultations.
Yep.
Head to our Instagram at Portugal Junkies and go to the bio. There's a calendar right there. We are happy to help you in any way we can.
DM us.
Or send us a DM. So we're happy to do that. And I think that's it for today.
Yeah.
We're gonna
And if you
see you next time.
Absolutely. One thing I will say is that if you're watching this and you think I wasn't paying attention because I was always looking down, it's because I was looking at the show notes.
Oh my God. This man.
So, I'm engaged.
Oh, my husband, the Brit.
Oh, there we are.
He doesn't like for me to call him a Brit. You like to be called an Englishman.
Yeah, but
It's important to you.
yeah, it is,
Why?
because that's who I am
You're not a Brit?
as well. But I'm an Englishman.
First, an Englishman.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right, guys, thank you so much. We appreciate you listening. Please pass it on. Please
Thank you.
review us on our podcast wherever you listen.
Yep.
Even if you're on YouTube here, give us a like, a follow, a comment. We want to
Subscribe.
build
Want to build it.
a community.
Listen up, future expats. For more content about our move, the visa process, Portuguese culture and destinations, and tons of support resources for your own decisions and potential move abroad, follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Portugal Junkies.
Stay in touch and help us reach more people by subscribing here and following us there.
Cheers, y'all!